That has started. Well, I need to read through our hearing script. This basically just covers the procedure for the hearing, and then we will jump right into the presentation. So this is the May 11th, 2022 session of the Zoning Hearing Examiner docket. My name is David Sturkey. I'm the Zoning Hearing Examiner for the City of Cincinnati, and I will preside over these cases. The cases that we have in front of us today are ZH20220064, which is the Linwood 3223 Linwood property. We have the ZH20220065, which is our 4861 Spring Grove Avenue property, and we have ZH20220066, which is 3468 Beekman Street. The purpose of this hearing is to allow applicants and opposing parties to testify and to offer and refute evidence and testimony. This hearing will follow the rules found in the zoning code and the supplemental rules of the Zoning Hearing Examiner. All testimony and evidence that an applicant or any opposing party wishes to offer must be presented at this hearing, unless a party has submitted evidence or testimony in the form of writing prior to this hearing. So the hearings will proceed as follows. So we are going to take these one by one. So we'll begin with the 3223 Linwood Avenue property. We'll begin by the applicant, the applicant's attorney, or the applicant's agent first presenting the applicant's case. That generally consists of the applicant telling me background on the project, what exactly the project is, the scope, changes to the property, and then reasons why they believe that the request is appropriate and that why I should grant the request. I will then move to any members of the public that would like to have the opportunity to speak after the applicant has presented its case. I will give the zoning plans examiner, Wes Menzel, an opportunity to prevent any testimony that he would like in addition to his staff report. In the event any party testifies or offers argument in opposition to this application, the applicant will have an opportunity to rebut the testimony and or argument that's been offered in opposition. And then finally, the applicant will have an opportunity to make any closing statements. So that'll be the procedure for each of the different properties, which we will do sort of one by one. Again, beginning with Linwood. After all presentations have been made, I will close the hearing. Decisions may be expected within 2 weeks. I may limit or exclude any testimony that I deem irrelevant or outside the scope of the application being considered. I may interrupt any speaker to ask questions or to make any comments. I may also refuse to consider hearsay testimony or documents. That's generally evidence you want to introduce that consists of statements made by someone who is not present at this hearing. In the event of any technical difficulties with the Zoom technology, I will do my best to troubleshoot any of those issues on the fly, but to the extent there is some defect that prevents us from meaningfully going forward with this hearing, I may continue or postpone the hearing at my discretion. Okay, the last thing I need to do is swear in all of our potential witnesses. So if you intend on providing any testimony at this hearing, asking any questions, making any statements, doing anything other than just strictly observing the hearing, then you need to be sworn in before your testimony. If you're not certain yet whether you're going to testify or not, I can swear you in as we come to that conclusion. But if you know now that you'd like to make some statements or provide some testimony during this hearing, I'd like to swear you in now collectively. So if that's you, if you could take yourselves off mute. For Mr. French and Ms. Yeagle, if you want to testify, I do ask that you activate your cameras so that I can actually see you when you're testifying. If you don't intend on testifying, you don't have to activate your cameras. And you only have to have your camera active during your testimony. So yeah, anyone who would like to testify, please turn on your cameras and take yourselves off mute. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Hey, David, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I don't have a camera on this particular computer I'm using. I apologize, but I did have a couple questions.
I do.
Okay, so
Yes.
hold tight, Mr. French. Okay, and Mr. Riley? I need everyone to answer out loud. Thank you. Ms. Yeagle?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. So, Mr. French, you don't have any device that has a camera that you can log into Zoom on?
I'm not in a great spot for that right now, no. I don't know if it matters, but I think my questions are fairly simple and straightforward.
Okay, we'll just hang tight. I think we should be able to address those. Let's go ahead and begin with the presentation. Maybe some of those questions will be answered during the course of the presentation. So let's see, we have 3223 Linwood is going to be first up. Which one of you or are all of you?
I'm doing all three.
Okay, great. So yeah, Mr. Waters, the floor is yours.
Thank you. This is application ZH20220064. Applicant is Dish Wireless, represented by SMJ International. The owner is the Archbishop of Cincinnati Trust. We're at 3223 Linwood Avenue. The zoning is SF10 single family and hillside overlay in the Mountain Lookout community. This is an eligible request to modify an existing support structure pursuant to section 6409 of the Middle Class Tax Relief Act and Job Creation Act of 2012 and the rules of the FCC. It's an existing 105-foot tower that's been on the site since '06 and is approximately 160 feet from the nearest residential structure in a residential zone. Existing base area has a chain link fence around it, but there is no screen fence. The tower is located at the rear of the parcel and has heavy vegetation on the north, south, and west side. Surrounding area has single and multi-family residential zoning and commercial zoning along Linwood Avenue and Delta Avenue at Mount Lookout Square with a mix of multi-family, single-family residential. Tower received a conditional use approval in 2010 to increase the height from 90 to 05. So per analysis 1403-07, a proposed expansion of the telecommunications tower. Dish proposes to install antennas and equipment on the existing tower and a 5-foot by 7-foot platform in the existing base area. The height of the tower is not being increased. The new equipment is located within the existing base area, which is not being increased in size. Based on the staff report, the only adverse impact is one of aesthetics. The site is partially screened by vegetation and a privacy fence. However, a part of the fence on the south / east boundary lacks screening. Applicant does not object to approval on the condition that the south and east perimeter be improved further with screening in the forms of slats within the existing chain link fence or fabric. Thank you.
Okay, just a couple of questions. How large exactly is the equipment that is going to be on the ground as a part of this application?
The ground platform in this, and by the way, it's the same in all three. The ground platform is 5 foot by 7 foot. It is a steel grate. It sits on feet 17 inches high. And it will hold a cabinet that's approximately 2.5 by 3.5 feet, a metal outdoor electronics equipment cabinet, and it will hold an H-frame for a new meter service. The ice bridge will be connected between the platform and the tower.
And so, and this is, I'm not really sure the right way to ask this. This is a new wireless service in Dish that is trying to add on to this antenna for the first time, or
it's a new co-location of Dish Wireless.
Got it. All right. Okay, I think that's all the questions I have for right now. Let's go ahead. Ms. Yeagle, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, but if you would like to provide some testimony or ask any questions, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so I can actually see the tower from my house. So if you want a visual of it, I can show you. But is there anything that's going to be put up high on the tower, or is it just that platform, the 5x7 platform at the base of it? Is there additional equipment that would be added to the top or the middle section of the tower?
Yes.
How much? Or what does that look like? Or do you have any diagrams?
Yes, they were submitted. It's a new mount.
Mr. Waters, I'm gonna share my screen here. Hopefully this can help with a little bit of a visual from Ms. Yeagle. Can you all see this?
Yes.
Okay, let me just try to, so this is the staff report. Mr. Waters, I don't know if you can reference this at all when answering that question, but here's a diagram that we have proposed.
Yes, thank you. So a new antenna mount near the top of the tower will be installed, similar, tad smaller than the one below it, with 3 new antennas and radios behind the antennas. You can't really see the radios.
Okay. That helps. Thank you.
Sure.
So just to be clear, these are the 2 existing here, Mr. Waters, and you're adding this one up top.
That is correct.
Okay, and is the new equipment pictured in this diagram as well? Is it one of these?
Yes. Yeah. There's a cabinet and there's an H-frame to the right of the cabinet. And there's the ice. It's not a wonderful depiction.
Yeah. Okay. Ms. Yeagle, did you have any other questions?
No, not at this time.
Do you have a position at all, either in favor, opposed, or neutral?
Neutral.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate you being here. After I give Mr. French an opportunity, like I said, there are 2 other locations that we'll be talking about, so feel free, if you'd like to drop off, you can do that at any time. Mr. French, are you with us?
I am.
Okay, go ahead and ask your questions if they haven't been answered already.
I wanted to confirm, it looks like you've got an additional 3-inch pad being installed. Is that within the bounds of the existing concrete structure that's there, or is that in addition to?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand the question. The installation on the ground will consist of a 5 by 7 foot steel grate, like ground platform. It's raised 17 inches, and that's the extent of the with an ice bridge connecting it to the tower. That's the extent of the equipment platforms on the ground. Is that
going on the same footprint as what's already there, or will the footprint be extended?
It's going within the fenced area.
Okay.
Yeah, the compound is not being enlarged.
And then have you, I'm sorry, I didn't get all the way through the documents online. I saw that there was a soil and structural section, but it's a pretty severe slope down that hill. Is there going to be a need for reinforcing the existing structure in any way, shape, or form? And then you also talked about the trees shielding it. Will the trees be impacted at all?
No. There's no tree work involved. And I'm sorry, what was your first question?
It's a severe slope right off the back side of that. With the additional weight of all the equipment, have you looked at whether or not that structure needs enforced so that the slope doesn't impact it?
The antenna support structure, the tower, its base and foundation, yes, were studied by a professional engineer for the additional weight.
And the conclusion was no changes required, no additional supports or modifications?
Correct. That's what we call a passing structural. It passed the structural, and of course that was submitted to the city.
And then have they looked at existing erosion around that structure? Was that part of the analysis? Because there, again, it is a pretty severe slope down that hill.
They looked at the foundation and the weight bearing and such. I'm not sure they came out on site and looked at soils, but that was all analyzed when it was built.
Yeah, but as you said, it was built in 06. So I, to be frank with you, that's right at the back of my property. I haven't walked all the way up there to really look, but I would encourage you to check for erosion because of the slope of the hill, especially if you're adding quite a bit of weight to that platform.
When you say platform, are you referring to the antenna support structure, which is the tower going up that holds the antenna? Are you referring to something on the ground?
Yeah, just the concrete structure on the ground that's holding up the tower.
Yeah, no, yes, that has been studied by a professional engineer and deemed adequate. And if there is any erosion issues on site when they get there, they will address those, yeah.
That's my only questions or concerns, and I would encourage you, if you go forward with this, to look at any potential erosion issues around that.
Okay, I will certainly let Dish know and American Tower, but normally these foundations, they're either post or pier. I don't know exactly how this is built, but they're pretty substantial and studied and checked regularly.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. French. Wes, did you want to add anything, or is there anything you can talk about in relation to the sort of structural safety of that site and any reviews that will come through buildings?
I do not look at the structural elements of it. The building code reviewer would look at that as part of their permit review, which I believe has maybe already been started at least.
Correct.
They look at the structural stuff. I mean, the tower did expand its height in 2010 by 15 feet. So I assume that the structural review also occurred at that point as well, and as of course during the initial design and construction 20 years ago. I did not look at any, I did not do a site visit. We don't normally do that. But so I don't know if there's any erosion or anything around the base of the tower or the base equipment.
Okay.
But I did have one question, I guess. The additional equipment, is that going to be extending is the height of the equipment taller than the existing fence, or will it be below the fence? And assuming the screening goes in, then it would not even be visible because it's below the height of the top of the fence. If Mr. Waters can answer that question.
You know the height of the fence, per chance?
I
do not. I assume it's either 4 foot or 6 foot.
Being as I own the adjacent property and I look at it, it's like a 6 foot tall fence, and I highly doubt any base ground equipment you put up is going to be taller than that fence if it's just control panels and such.
Agreed.
My biggest question as regards to the trees was from a screening perspective. I really can't see the tower well because of all the trees, and the trees also help hold the bank and erosion and things like that in place. So the trees are good for screening and also for holding the bank. If you apply slats to the fence, to be honest with you, I really don't care. It's probably more of an aesthetic issue from up top at the playground level at the school that's there, and less of an issue from behind. But the slats would largely be added behind. So it's really irrelevant if you add slots or not.
Well, our zoning staff report outlined there is a screening requirement that we implement in cases where there's adverse aesthetic impacts. So we did require screening on the east side and south side so that the playground and parking lot and Miss Yeagel's house doesn't see the equipment. So I think that's part of what Mr. Waters has agreed to do. So hopefully that would
Right.
address that negative impact on those sides. And of course, obviously on your side with the topography and the hill, you said you can't really see the tower anyways, or
Well, my major screen is the trees, and that was why I was asking if there'd be any impact to those. I have a strong preference that the trees not be impacted because I can't see the tower in the summer months because of all the leaves.
it sounds like they're not touching the trees from what I heard Mr. Waters say.
We don't have any rights to touch the trees that I'm aware of. They're not within our leased area.
So, Mr. French, if you have more questions about the structural integrity of the hillside and that sort of thing, and the platform, I think that is something where you can reach out to our building department directly and inquire about that to see when the latest inspections and evaluations have been done on that. But I think this hearing is just going to be limited to strictly the zoning, or more or less whether the proposal fits into the context of the neighborhood and is compatible with surrounding properties.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. I am reading the soil report that was provided, and I see the civil engineering report, and I'm looking through that. So
Great.
I want to add
Okay.
one more thing for Mr. French. The permit number, if you call the building department, you can ask them about the structural review for this permit number. It's 2022 P01659.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Anything else, Mr. Waters, on this particular property?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to 4861 Spring Grove.
All righty. This application ZH20220065 for Dish Wireless, represented by SMJ International. The owner of the property is Spring Grove Self-Storage. It's MG Manufacturing General Zone District and Spring Grove Village. It's an eligible facilities request to modify an existing support structure pursuant to section 6409A. And it's an existing 169-foot tower that's been on the site since about 2006, is approximately 900 feet from the nearest residential structure in a residential zone. The existing base area has a chain link fence around it, but the base is not visible from the street due to its location in the rear and materials and vehicles blocking the view from the street. Consequently, it doesn't have potential adverse impacts on the public. Based on this, the installation of screening wasn't recommended by staff. The surrounding area has a mix of commercial and industrial zoning, residential zoning beyond to the west. And Spring Grove Avenue corridor is a mix of industrial and commercial uses. Per 1403-07, the proposed expansion and of the facility requires the use approval. The height of the existing tower is not being increased. New equipment is located within the existing base area, fenced area, and the base area is not being increased in size. New equipment in the base area, according to the staff report, will have a minimum negative impact on the public, even if it's not screened, because it's not visible from the public street and it abuts a railroad track and industrial uses. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, I think I missed this. Why is there no screening on this one?
I can answer that, I guess. It's in the rear of the property and it's abutting industrial uses and a railroad track and not visible from the street.
Gotcha. But what about the existing equipment down there? Isn't that all visible from the street?
No, the one in the picture, are you looking at the picture on page 2?
I'm looking at Google Maps, but
Okay. Well, there's 2 towers on this site. The one we're dealing with is in the back.
oh, gotcha. So the one that's right on the street line there, that's not the one we're talking about.
No.
Okay. Well, that explains it. Okay, yeah, I see. All
Yeah,
right.
I was, took me a while to figure that out too.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Hey, David, I'm sorry. I don't mean to go backwards. I'm just sitting here reading this analysis on the Linwood site, and I'd like to read it to you because I'm not sure it's consistent with what was just said. It says analysis recommendations. The existing topography requires that the cut and fill operation be performed across the site prior to construction. The existing grade access site, blah, 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 blah. It is understood that additionally, a retaining wall is to be constructed along the perimeter of the leased site. So, I mean, we're talking about a retaining wall being built, and that would be adjacent to my property, but yet the people representing don't seem to know what's going to happen, or at least what was in this recommendation by the civil engineers.
Gotcha. So you're saying,
go ahead.
Mr. French, just to make sure I have this clear, you're saying that the engineering report that was submitted with the application references construction of a retaining wall in the hillside?
That's correct. Section 5 of the report by CTL Engineering, it specifically says, additionally, a retaining wall is to be constructed along the perimeter of the leased site. So, I mean, my question or my reason for coming on here was to understand what impact around the site is going to happen. And if we're installing retaining walls and such, then I think we get into a question of the adjacent trees and the hillside and things of that nature.
Gotcha. So I'll allow Mr. Waters, and I know Mr. Riley has his hand up, so the two of you are welcome to address that. But is construction of a retaining wall a part of this project?
Brendan, do you want to take that? I'm looking for it. I did not have that in my scope.
Yeah, I think I'd provide some clarification here. So the report Mr. French is referring to is from 1995. So that would have been done when the tower was first being constructed. So I can say that there are retaining walls currently existing on site within the compound.
So there won't be any new retaining walls constructed as a part of
Correct.
this project, correct? Okay.
Correct.
Okay, and this report is from 1995, so that seems consistent at least.
Okay. And again, just to be clear, Mr. Riley or Mr. Waters, there is not going to be any excavation to the hillside or any hillside disturbance as a part of this project. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I'm sorry, I didn't read this report earlier because it is the report that was done for the initial construction, not the current report.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I apologize. I just assumed that it was, since it was in the package, it was part of the current. So that was.
Oh, no.
I apologize.
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all. Good question.
Okay. Thanks again, Mr. French. Okay, I think that we can move on to the final application on Beekman.
Oh, okay.
Unless did you have more on Spring Grove?
No, I was done. I forgot where we left off. I'm sorry.
Sure.
Okay. Application ZH20220066. Dish Wireless is applying. SMJ is the agent. The owner of the property is DLRK Properties Limited at 3468 Beekman Street in MG zoning in South Cummingsville community. This is an eligible facilities request pursuant to section 6409A. of the Job Creation Act of 2012 and the rules of the FCC. The subject property is approximately 400 feet by 350 feet parcel on the southeast corner of Beekman Street and Drayman, I believe, D-R-E-M-A-N Avenue, and has the existing 99-foot tall telecommunication tower with base area on that parcel. It is MG, a zoning district. The tower has been on the site since at least 2006, according to Cage's aerials, and a conditional use approval for the tower construction from 2006. Tower is approximately 200 feet from the nearest residential structure in the residential zone. The existing base area has a chain link fence around it, but there is no screen fence. The surrounding area has a mix of residential, single family and multifamily, industrial and commercial zoning. The surrounding land uses are a mix of industrial, multifamily and single family, a small church, small commercial, auto salvage yard, and retail land uses. The new equipment in the base area will have a minimum negative impact on the public, even if it's not screened, because it's not visible from public street or nearby properties and abuts an existing industrial area. Per section 1403-07, we're here for the conditional use approval. The proposed use is appropriately located, designed, and configured. Dish has the same scope of work by 7 foot steel grate ground platform for equipment cabinets, ice bridge, new mount with 3 antennas and radios on the tower. The height of existing tower is not being increased, and the new equipment is located within the existing base area, and the base area is not being increased. Thank
you. Wes, anything on this one?
No, I mean, it's in the rear of the property and no screening is necessary for back there.
Sure, okay. Anything else from anyone in closing or otherwise before we adjourn here today? Okay, hearing nothing, I think we'll leave it at that. I want to thank everyone for their time and their testimony here today. I've had a chance to review the application materials for each of these, the staff report. Based on that and on the testimony I've heard today, I am going to go ahead and approve each of these. I will add on the condition on the Linwood Street project that the screening be put up in the fence. But yeah, I think that's it. As soon as I have to sort of formalize that decision in a written opinion, which typically takes a couple weeks. I do have, as you guys know from last week, quite a large amount of applications coming through right now. And so it is taking me a little bit longer on some of those than 2 weeks. I'm trying to get through them as quickly as I possibly can. When I finish them, I put them into a PDF and I immediately send them to everyone in the hearing. So you'll have a copy of it really just moments after it's complete. As soon as you have that, Wes can okay the permits. Mr. Riley, did you have a question right now?
Yes, sorry. I just had a question on reading the staff report on the Linwood property with respect to the screening. I just want to make sure we're clear and comply with like the condition in that my understanding was that the vegetation around most of the property would not require screening, but then the part that was not screened on the southeast boundary that would require screening. Is that understanding correct?
Yeah, I was intending that it be the 2 sides that face, one side kind of faces the parking lot, and the other the south, and then the south side faces the playground, like those 2 sides.
Yeah, there is a big like wooden privacy fence, like immediately facing like the basketball hoops and like the playground. But there are like some around the corners. There are some like screen or just normal metal fencing. So yeah, there's no objection to it. I just wanted to make sure I understood.
Sure. So there's only 2 sides that are facing non-wooded areas. Is that right, Wes?
Well, I'm looking at the aerial photo now. So it's a rectangular shape parallel to the parking lot. So the side that it's not oriented north-south. It's kind of at an angle from the north-south, meridian. But the side of the base area that faces the parking lot, and then that length, which is like 30 or 40 feet, and then the side facing the playground is kind of faces the woods also, but it also is probably visible from the playground and the neighbor's house to the south. But Mr. O'Reilly, did you just say there is some screen fence on some segments of the fence, or?
Yeah, here, I can share my screen if that would be helpful.
Sure.
I can show you a picture. Let me know if you can see it okay. I can blow it up. Can you see it?
Yeah.
We can.
Yes.
So there's still obviously there's still the fence, on portions of it that would need additional screening. But there is this wood privacy fence immediately adjacent to the playground.
Yeah, no, that's very good. But is there additional segments of fence that need screening? Is that?
So I believe so. And that's kind of why I was just looking for clarification. I think on the south and east boundary, there still is some chain link fence where additional, I think it's 20 to 30 feet maybe, where additional screening would be helpful.
Gotcha. So that's sort of the northeast and the southwest sides of the fence.
I believe so.
Brendan, can you bring that picture back up? I have a question of Weston.
This is not the same picture. This is my screen, but what I was referring to is, the fence. I assume it goes like this.
Yes.
Like this.
That was my question. I believe we're talking about screening on the fence sections perpendicular to the wooden wall at the 90-degree corner there.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, I think that would be helpful.
Okay, not on the same line as the wooden fence, but on the perpendicular line.
Yes.
Thank you.
Assuming the screen fence that's facing the parking lot covers
That entire length.
entire length of that fence up to the perpendicular fences.
I believe it does, but I
Okay.
understand.
So I'll write all of that out in the condition. That's what the condition will be, is that there is screening on the part of the fence facing the parking lot, and then the sort of northeast and southwest portions of the fence that are perpendicular to the parking lot portion of the fence. I will put it more succinctly when it's in writing. But as long as we're all in agreement on that, then I think we're in good shape there.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay. Any other questions right now about anything with the process here?
No, sir. Thank you, Mr. Sturkey.
Sure. Thank you all again for your time, your testimony. Hope you have
Thanks,
a wonderful
Weston.
day. You're adjourned.
Hey, David,
Bye.
I just wanted to thank you guys for including me in the notification and the whole process. It was really smooth and easy, and I appreciate being included. It's city did a really nice job with this.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you sharing that, Mr. French. And thank you for being here and asking some really good pointed questions. All right.